Recently, the whole crypto market has been in a huge decline, so that brings the question, how can you earn money on your assets, especially in a bear market? However, I wouldn't say that the whole market is bearish right now. It seems like we're still in a bull cycle, but right now it seems like we're seeing a bit of a bear market, and I'm pretty bearish on overall crypto throughout the next few months. Especially leading up to the election, I'm a bit bearish on crypto during this time because typically there's some pretty crazy things that happen in the United States during the election period. And a lot of that can fall back onto cryptocurrency because big institutions and investors are the ones that drive the prices. Those who invest a couple $1,000s, even tens of thousands, up to $100,000 into an asset that is over $1 trillion market cap typically aren't going to be driving the prices. And if you look at the past 3 months for Bitcoin, you can see we started off pretty high. It was almost at $71,000. Then it dropped a bit. Then it went back up to around 70,000. Look, even 71,000 again. And now, darn, it's at $57,000, $58,000. So today we're going to be showing some stablecoin strategies, and not only the strategies that I'd actually want to invest in, but I'm also going to show how you can go out and find these strategies on your own. That way, when the next bear market comes into play, you're all set. If you enjoy this type of content, subscribe with notifications on and hit the like button. We're going to head over to the DeFi Llama website because this is where we can get a lot of our information from. It lists all the yields across all the different chains alongside all the decentralized exchanges and networks. So now we're going to go to the yields category, and then we're going to select stablecoin pools. Now, obviously, there's a ton of different strategies we can run, like having a long position with a very high APR, and then short equal exposure to that long position to earn a passive income by collecting number one, the funding rate, and number two, the yield you're getting on the long position. And if you use leverage, you can even get a higher return. That's going to be a more complicated delta neutral strategy or market neutral strategy, and we're just not going to talk about those in today's video. Now, in the stablecoin section, we're going to go ahead and select the chains we want to be on. So me personally, I don't care too much. I'm just going to try to be on a lot of them. So I'm going to select Ethereum, Binance Smart Chain, Solana, and then Avalanche is fine for me. Where is that? Here. And then Polygon, Optimism, Base. And then I'm going to select Sui because I think of that as a solid chain as well. And then just select any other chains that you want to select. And then if you really want to, you can go ahead and narrow it down through projects, but I'm not going to do that at the moment. I'm going to go over to the TVL section and look at stuff that has over a 1 million TVL, because that typically means that there's a lot of liquidity already in it. Then for APY, let's look at stuff that has over a 9% APY. The reason why I say 9% is because sometimes there's opportunities that are paying out about 10% APY, but when you go to concentrated liquidity, it can pay out much higher. But also sometimes there's going to be very low risk strategies mixed in here, and you don't really want to filter those out because maybe you want to allocate some part of your portfolio into a low risk strategy, and then maybe you'd want to put some of your portfolio in a high risk strategy. So I like to think of this as kind of just a way to balance out the overall yield. And now we're going to go ahead and open up a spreadsheet. At the top, just put platform, network, position, APR, allocation, and annual return. And then from there, we're going to start to document different positions that we find and do due diligence on to make sure that they're legit platforms on the spreadsheet. And I'm going to start off with this Athena position because I've heard about this position before. You can go ahead and deploy and get 15.6% APY, it says. Or we could go over here onto Pendle and buy PT or YT. And then from there, we could get like 17% or 16%, it says. And a lot of people are using the Pendle market because it's one of the largest markets. And you can see that this has $102 million on it. So first, I'm going to go ahead and use the Pendle position. And sometimes there's going to be positions that display a certain return, and you're going to have to dive deep into them to make sure that they actually do live up to that return. So we're going to go here, platform, Pendle, network, Ethereum. And then for position, we're going to go SUSDE. So SUSDE and then PT. I believe this one is. And then the APY for this says 17%. So I'm going to go ahead and just round the 17.23 to 17%. And then for allocation and annual return, you can find those later. You don't have to figure them out right now. So we can just keep moving down this list. And the next one I see is going to be this DOLA to USDC. And this one is over on Aerodrome. And instead of getting into on Aerodrome and taking on the declining Aero token, because remember, our whole goal is to kind of phase out some of that market exposure, we're going to go over to Beefy Finance, where Beefy Finance will automatically compound your Aerodrome position for you. So we're going to go ahead and deploy into the DOLA one over here, where it automatically sells the Aero multiple times per day back into the stablecoin position. Matter of fact, over here, I do see DOLA to USDC at 26% APY. And then I even see DOLA to USD Plus at 27% APY. I'm going to go ahead and go with USD Plus one because I know that USD Plus is backed by basically pretty good assets, including USDC. So we're going to put this one as Beefy, network as base. Then for the position, we're going to put DOLA, USD Plus. And as you can see, the the APR says 27.8%, so I'm going to say 28%. And then also, when we're on Beefy Finance, we can go ahead and hit stable coins right here. So it's going to show us all the different stable coin opportunities over on Beefy Finance. If we sort by APY, we can find some pretty high APY stuff, but of course we don't want to go ahead and deploy into all these because a lot of these might not be very solid platforms. So just keep that in mind. I'm also going to go ahead and include this DAI Plus to USD Plus because DAI Plus is the same exact platform as USD Plus. They're both moderated and ran by Overnight Finance. So I'm going to put that over here. It's also on Beefy and also on the base network. So DAI Plus to USD Plus. And then the APY for this one is looking like 21.7%. So I'm going to round it to 22%. And from there, obviously, these are going to be lower risk positions. So we're going to need to ramp things up. So we need to find stuff that's doing a much higher APY so we can get our portfolio to a much higher return. So we're going to go ahead and up this APY factor on DeFi Llama all the way to 50. Let's see what we see. So I only see these two positions over here. This is a leveraged Go token. Now Go token is native to the Auth platform, and Go token isn't very stable. It fluctuates frequently. Reason for the fluctuation is because it's pegged to other assets. And if you look at the past 3 months, you can see it had some pretty large fluctuations. You can see it went all the way down here to about over 97 cents, then it went all the way up to a bit over $1.02. So it does fluctuate. And if you go in the 1 year, look, it went all the way down here to 95 cents, 96 cents, and then it hit a high of about $1 here, like a bit over $1. So I probably don't want to take on exposure here. Let's go and look at stuff that has a minimum of 35. Here we go, apply filter. And now we have this MIM USDC USDT pool. This one has about a $7.8 million TVL, and it's on the Abracadabra project. Keep in mind that's the guys that facilitate MIM basically. So we're going to go ahead and throw this one over here on the spreadsheet. Let's see. Here we go. Abracadabra. And then on the network, we're going to put the ARB, the Trum network, and let's check the APY. It's doing about 37%. Great. Let's put that 47%. And then we'll also document the assets, which is MIM, USDC, and USDT, I believe. Let's double check that. Yes. And then allocation, once again, we're going to figure that out later. And then we're going to go ahead and head over to Extra Finance because Extra Finance has some pretty solid opportunities where you can go kind of delta neutral, but in an easy way. They do facilitate different delta neutral strategies, basically, where you can borrow one asset and then deploy that same exact asset into liquidity pools. So we're going to look for some high yield assets, but not super high yield. So we're going to ideally look for something that has USDC in it or allows us to do a dual borrow. And you can do that by going over here and seeing if there's a both option where it says assets to borrow. And at the moment, there's no both option on this one. We can go look at a different pool. Let's take a look at this one here. Let's see, same exact thing. Then we can look at this like climate position here. And basically, we cannot really borrow basically because the borrow limit is pretty much 100%. And then let's check this climate position right here. And the borrowing interest is almost 100%, which means we can't really borrow Clima, which means the strategy wouldn't really work because the borrow limit is like 100% used. So basically just keep that in mind. So we need to find a position that has exposure to USDC, but also has exposure to something that we can borrow and essentially expose our position. So this SNX to USDC pool seems like it suits pretty well. So if I go 2x leverage, and you can see I have a long of 0 SNX, and if I go ahead and type in 1,000 USDC that I want to deploy, and also make sure this is set to SNX, I have a long of 1,000 USDC in this scenario. So which means the USDC, that's staying in price, but I have delta neutral exposure. And what APY is this doing? Well, that's doing about 0.11% a day, which is about 46%. So we can go ahead and once again include this in the portfolio over here. So Extra Finance over on base, then SNX/USDC. I'm also going to go ahead and include another position over here, which is the OVN to USD plus, because occasionally what I see over on Extra Finance is the ability to borrow some of that OVN, but it's going to be very, very circumstantial. I believe there's like some whales on the back end that continue to lend more and more OVN into the platform. Or if you were to, let's just say, lend some OVN into the platform, you could borrow it yourself basically. And then what you could do is short your OVN exposure over on a centralized exchange or over on a decentralized exchange that allows for perpetuals, or you can use a different lending and borrowing market. There's a ton of different strategies that you can use, but I occasionally see that this OVN one has some exposure opening up. And if we were to use like 2x leverage over here, it looks like we're getting over 1,000% APY, but keep in mind the underlying APR is about 366%. So I'm just going to say that this one's 350% to round it up. And if you really want to, you can go ahead and cut that in half. And this is to be relatively realistic because we are going to have borrowing costs. And guess what? As borrowing costs go up, that's going to deplete our APR. So what you want to do to get that high APR is invest into these positions. And remember, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not telling you to invest your capital into these positions. I'm just saying you should look into these and do your due diligence on them to see if it's a good opportunity for you. into. These are just the ones that I'm looking into. So for allocation wise, I'm just going to say $10,000 over here and allocate $10,000 to each of them. Why is it doing that? There we go. Now this isn't a very good diversification strategy whatsoever, more of a simplistic approach when it comes to diversification. And then just like that, there we go. Let's go ahead and go like this, just like that. Here we go. So then I'm going to go ahead and add all these numbers together. And that's about $33,000 on $60,000. That's about a 50% APR. And this is really cool to get an APR on stable coins. And remember, this is relying that you're checking the market over on something like Extra Finance, and you can get into one of these positions like OVN USD Plus, or another position like USDC to Arrow. And realistically, it's going to be very hard to get in some of these positions, especially how the market is right now. So do not expect 50% APR. Expect much less. But I'm just showing you what is possible if you're able to get into these positions. Let me know what other type of tutorials you'd like me to make videos about. And if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to like the video and subscribe with notifications on, and I'll see you in the next one.